So, we've all heard the term industry plant before, right? Well, if you haven't, we're going to discuss exactly what that is in this episode of my Pop Dissected podcast. More often than not, industry plant is thrown out as an insult to debase an artist's talent or abilities. The term is used to describe an artist who, in essence, is picked out by a major label and has these hefty connections, but is marketed to appear organic in their growth and as if they're self-starters. We can see why people use this as an insult, as it implies that the artist had a jump start in their career as opposed to many years of hard work, thus implying they didn't work for their status and had it handed to them. As we continue, let me know if you actually believe in industry plants. If so, who do you believe could fit the description of one and why? Industry plants may also be artists who are essentially crafted by their label to push a certain sound or image into popularity. This could be for the label's benefit monetarily, or solely to try and capitalize on a new trend. Why we frown upon those who are allegedly industry plants is because authenticity is one of the biggest factors to any musician, and whether we recognize it or not, our ability to authentically connect to an artist who is genuine builds up their career and relevancy. It also helps us as an audience feel seen and appreciated. Thus, this authenticity matters for the consumer and the creator. If we have someone whom we can't connect to greatly and seems to connect with us, the notion that they aren't really who they say they are or have been presenting an inaccurate account of how they became famous can really sever any type of mutual connection and trust. Being labeled an industry plant can damage an artist pretty severely. It can tarnish an up-and-coming artist's reputation before their career even starts, and it could lead to such virality it will be just accepted as fact before any research is done. One popular artist we know of being constantly accused of being an industry plant is Billie Eilish. Being an artist whose family is very musical, homely, and she started out making songs with her brother, then became an almost overnight sensation, is the prime justification for this. In fact, with the help of her brother's manager, Billie was able to get signed through Apple Music to a special promotional contract for artists before they get signed to big record labels. Does this very fortunate series of events feel falsified? No, they're very lucky, and for some people, the stars align rather meticulously, and that path can be paved for them. Sometimes it's just about who you know. Billie blew up so significantly in just 2 years, it raises questions in people's minds. She was a darling at the Grammys, and that type of sweep for such a new artist made a lot of people turn their head, simply because it's so unprecedented. People will not only question the legitimacy of the artist, but also the award ceremony itself. I feel for the most part, an artist will gain traction progressively before massively blowing up. Or perhaps they'll have a notable success, but nothing like they'd see later down the line in their career. Billie's success expanded so immensely in just a 2-year time frame, comparable to artists who have been in the game for a long time. This makes audiences wonder what is so special with this artist and why is the label so invested in them? That's a pretty good point. At the end of the day, it brings up yet another question about an artist's authentic growth and establishment in the industry, because it can incidentally make audiences feel that the artist isn't deserving because they haven't truly worked as hard as others may have. Being an industry plant would also perhaps imply that since the artist is so regulated by their label, they could easily be discarded once they aren't profitable anymore. If you've worked hard in your craft, you're miraculously discovered and then your label invests in you because they see potential, how does that default to industry plant? Because wouldn't that situation be applicable to Billie? It's not a foreign concept that artists can be discovered and receive a massive career afterwards. But I think why people say industry plant so much is because the artists that blow up seemingly out of nowhere are no longer few and far between. Thus, it gives this illusion in the industry that anyone can make it. All these artists have broken through barriers and worked for their career, as opposed to perhaps these artists already having big connections, wealth, or status. There are artists who have already been pipelined right into the music industry from their roles on television, namely Ariana Grande and Miley Cyrus. Now, I'd argue that this is a more suitable depiction of an industry plant. Now, it may not fit the narrative that people want or like, but think about it. Two actresses who star in shows revolving around the arts or singing are pushed right into a music career and really become the faces of their respective network channel. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I think that pipeline is a lot more suitable to call an industry plant. These artists are being directly planted in the industry, not growing into it organically or up and coming been struggling to make it. But we also have to look at, because of these roles these artists filled on their own shows, it would have made sense for them to go into music anyway. Thus, we could also say it was a natural career shift. But I digress. If you're really an industry plant, going by the general definition mentioned at the beginning, and were put there just to be a moneymaker and your entire image and sound is falsified, then I honestly don't believe you'd be able to stand out on your own. Every aforementioned artist clearly has shown they can stand on their own 2 feet. And while Miley and Ariana may fit my personal interpretation of an industry plant, I believe all these women show their creativity, talent, and have worked for their success, regardless of how it came about. With so many different ideas on what could be classified as an industry plant, it makes you question if it's even a legitimate claim. Since it's thrown around so much, you'd have to think every artist now is a plant. All of this could tie into points I made in another podcast about being self-made versus someone who had the benefit of others from the get-go. However, an industry plant relies more heavily so within the label. Does it even matter if an artist is an industry plant? Would it not make sense an artist would sign to a label and work with them to promote their music before releasing it? I don't really think the term has anything wrong with it, and people use it just to use it. Same with the word flop. To some degree, every artist has backing from a major label, has blown up with fame, and works with their team to craft a certain aesthetic. The question comes about when all this happens within a super short time frame. Well, we also have to think about the way social media and the internet is connected. Just about anything or anyone can go viral. How many times a week does a song blow up on TikTok, whether it be by a new artist or an established one? We live in an age of such rapid consumption that of course artists that have some trend factor to them will blow up immensely. And I believe a lot of new stars we see do have something to them that is trendy or different that helps them stand out. Now, is this to say this was crafted entirely by the label, or these artists have their own unique visions? I prefer to go with the latter because I like to give artists credit, as we should, and I don't really think any major new breakout star we see uses what's trendy about them to base all their talent off of. Like I said, they can all stand on their own 2 feet. I think the virality also brings into question, if you have all these artists who are blowing up, how do you decide who is worth it? Because when you think about it, a label is making an investment. Do you pick someone like Olivia Rodrigo or Lil Nas X, Dua Lipa or Lizzo, all of which have been accused of being industry plants? Because it makes you think, if someone is truly an industry plant and a label is investing so much into them, why have none of them genuinely been untalented or proven that they're not strong artists? Though an industry plant is different from a manufactured star, whose entire identity is heavily marketed through their label and executive. So with all that, do you think industry plants actually exist? Who do you think is one, and what claims do you have to support it? I'd like to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, be sure to drop a like and subscribe so you can get future content on all your favorite pop stars. I'd also like to quickly shout out my channel members, Skyhawker, Daniel Barron, Steven, David Vaz Mediano, and Carl Dillinson. If you'd like to join and become a channel member to decide future video topics, get exclusive chat and name badges, then I'd love to have you as a channel member. Thank you for listening.